Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello and good morning to you. Welcome back to the squad. Thank you for joining me today at the start of another little adventure here in a very cold and wintry Finland. So I'm going on the making of Mobil 1. We're going to be heading over to Mobil 1's factory out here in Finland to find out a little bit more about where oil for our car's engines is actually made. But this journey is starting me off here at the Porsche Center in Helsinki, where I'm going to be picking up the car that I'm going to be using for this journey, the new Porsche Cayenne. It makes sense to drive an SUV when there's a lot of snow around, right? So we're going to be seeing the car, looking around it. I'll show you all about the new car today, take it for the drive over towards the factory. It's going to come up later on. But I'm rather cold out here, I'm not going to lie. So let's get inside into the showroom and take a look at the car. Stunning 911 GT3 RS in ultraviolet would be an incredible car to drive. Today might not necessarily be the right conditions for it. In fact, the 911 Carrera 4S that you saw as well, the special 100th anniversary edition for Finland, it's a one-off four-wheel drive. That would be a little bit more sensible, but I think the most appropriate car for the journey that we're going to be embarking on over to Mobil 1 is the new Porsche Cayenne. And like I said, this is my first time taking a proper look at it. So we'll go for a walk around now, talk about some of the features and details of the latest generation Cayenne. And this is now the Cayenne S, so it has the 2.9 litre bi-turbo V6, an engine we're seeing across the board. In fact, the VW group, as it expands and creates more models and adds to the lineup, does a lot more sharing in terms of platforms and engines and creating unique combinations. So the Cayenne shares the platform with the Lamborghini Urus. This engine, for example, is shared with the RS5 and RS4 from Audi. It's the 2.9 litre, it has 440 horsepower, 550 newton meters, goes 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.2 seconds. So this car has ample performance behind it. It also has the 3-chamber air suspension, very comfortable ride with the 48-volt system that calculates and adjusts everything on the fly, that again is shared with the Bentayga and other models from across the group. We'll take a walk around it. Styling hasn't changed too much from the previous generation. Full LED headlights, as you can see, the adaptive cruise control sensor, the car moving on slightly in terms of technology. The interior is by far the most significantly updated part of this, so we'll jump in there any moment. You can see it's running on the Nokian studded winter tyres. These are significantly more appropriate than, say, summer tyres for this kind of location out here in winter. And around back it now has the full light strip. I've left the ignition on so you can see that illuminated all the way across. I like the way they've done it. I think it's nice consistency across the board between all of the models. And the S has a nice spoiler at the top of the rear deck lid as well, and quadruple exhaust tips too on each side down at the back, which is always very nice. So if we head round to the inside and take a little look in here, you are greeted by the latest technology, infotainment and control systems, and a vast central screen. It is probably the biggest in any car that, well, isn't a Tesla, and then you have the digital screens to support it either side of the rev counter for the driver display as well, with all of your different bits of information, your driving mode selector for Sport, Sport Plus or Individual, depending how you've configured it. You can manually set up the car as you'd like it, and then the touchscreen system that actually detects when you're coming in to press a button, which is really quite nice as well, and all the touch controls down here that we've seen a similar setup to in the Panamera, but now introduced into the Cayenne as well. So it's practical, it's luxurious, there's 770 litres of luggage space back there in the boot, obviously a comfortable 5-seater option with more than enough leg space back behind us. But what it's going to be like on today's journey, we shall find out as we make our way over from here. So I think with no further ado really, I should get started, get on outside and onto this have collected today is totally brand new. It's a completely new vehicle. It was registered this morning with less than 60 kilometers on the clock. So this is its first drive, its maiden voyage for my adventure with Mobil 1, which is really quite exciting. I'm very lucky. It feels like collecting a totally new Cayenne, which is awesome. But nonetheless, so far I'm just taking it gently, cruising along, comfortable drive, being aware of the speed limits, getting accustomed to what's going on. And I'll show you later on a little bit more about the technology and things in here, because there's a lot to this car. But basically, just enjoying the day out and the new car. I've stopped for a pause in this very calm, picturesque and quaint little village, but the scenery I've been driving past so far is extraordinary, from frozen lakes to wide open white snow-covered fields, the sun glistening through the trees, and it's the first time, I think, for me properly out in the open, driving and experiencing having studded tyres, and the effortlessness with which they can get up roads like this, snow-covered, ice-covered, is quite incredible to experience. The whole place is completely set up. I think the only noise you can hear in the background here is actually the snow basher moving snow around and clearing the roads. But I'm going to jump back in the car because up to this point I've not told you too much about what it's like to actually drive. I'm just enjoying the location, looking around, and these rather odd animals, snow ice-like looking animals floating on the water there. Anyway, let's jump back in the car and continue our drive towards Naantali, where the factory is. Types of roads. We had the town roads out of Helsinki itself, then we've had the motorways to get towards where I am now, where I'm on these nice gently meandering twisty roads through the trees. So I've experienced the car in a number of different environments already, but the number one feature that I am appreciating at this moment is the heated steering wheel, well, and number two, the heated seats, because it is freezing. I'm very lucky that I'm driving on quite a lovely day. They've had a fresh snowfall, but the sky is blue. What more could you ask for, even though the daylight, like I said, is going to be a very short one today. I think it's only light for about 5 or 6 hours of the day at this time of year, right in the middle of winter. But driving in the car, just cruising along, obviously studded tyres introduce a bit more road noise into the cabin than if you had regular tyres on a dry piece of tarmac rather than this specific location. But I have to say, this is such a cool place to be driving, so I'm very pleased that we got in touch with Porsche to ask to pick up this car for this one today. Now, the thing with the new Cayenne is, like the new Panamera that I went through in detail about a year ago, it has so much in terms of technology and comfort and just everything that you could possibly anticipate or expect in the car that makes it such a gentle and easy driving experience. I mean, I'm not driving particularly dynamically at the moment, I'm in the regular comfort mode, but the displays are lovely to look at. You can scroll up and down both sides and have countless pieces of information and things to actually look at and be reported back to about the car. We know that this car has more than enough punch if you want to put your foot down and get a move on somewhere. Like I said, you can put it up, twisting the dial there on the steering wheel into sport mode, gets a little bit louder, the gearbox gets a little bit more punchy. It's the 8-speed automatic Tiptronic system, rather than a double clutch like you might find in the slightly more sporty Porsches. Sport Plus mode that I've gone into now would be rougher still, but we'd have even more noise and excitement and more dynamic because the dampers in the car are highly configurable. They have a huge breadth of capability, from being very comfortable at one end through to being hugely sporty for an SUV at the other end. And although it'd be fun to experience what this car would be like if you throw it hard around the corner, and how stable it could be, or whether, or answer this question of whether an SUV, whether they're getting progressing in that sense and that capability, but I don't think on this terrain it would necessarily be the right idea. So let's not do that right now. Or individual mode, if you spin it one further, where you can custom configure the car, so you can raise and lower it, you can have the suspension lower should you prefer higher, you can lift it up if you want to get over some off-road terrain parts. You've got all sorts of controls that help if you are off-road, descending, for example, hill descent control. Obviously we've got adaptive cruise control, speed limiter, that side of things. You can shift with the paddles on the back of the steering wheel should you like. It's basically a very comfortable drive, and this central display is huge and awesome and has so much information. If you bring it up into nav, the only thing I really don't like is the touch sensitive controls that you don't really know what you're pressing unless you actually look down, and then you're looking down not at the road in front of you to actually see it, because although there is a feedback sense to it, there's not the ability, you know, where's my heated seat? Normally you could feel a little bit with the surrounding buttons because you know the layout. And here, even if you know the layout, you're still a little bit scuppered if you want to necessarily press the right button. Anyway, this place is incredible. I think I've got a couple of hours still to go. It's quite a long drive from Helsinki over to where I'm heading. I'm definitely enjoying it. This is a very nice way to spend the day. I think it's fair to call this exploring single track snowy roads, but had I taken that GT3 RS we saw earlier, that might have had a little problem. So this is by far the most sensible car for this journey. Driving around roads like this, getting as lost as I can, all basically part of the adventure. I don't think many people buy an SUV for the sound that it makes. Of course, there are some with V8s and whatnot, but if we shift down a few gears here manually in Sport Plus, just to hear a bit more of it, the twin turbocharged V6 in this car actually sounds pretty decent. And like I said earlier, I can't gun it because it's brand new. We can get a bit of noise. It's not too intrusive into the cabin, but this car isn't really about that. SUVs are about the space they have, the practicality, taking the whole family and pop it back into comfort, mostly being driven in comfort mode rather than dynamically. I would really like to push this because it does give you a sense that it actually drives pretty well for such a big car. You know, it's the largest family member, the largest platform across the group in terms of the SUVs, the different models. The Macan sits slightly smaller, but it doesn't necessarily feel it, which is kind of surprising me versus previous generation SUVs. It doesn't feel as large and lumpy as I might have expected. It feels easy to position. I mean, maybe there's a bit of width to it, of course, you'll be aware of that. You have the large panoramic roof, which is really nice to get a feeling of some light inside the cabin, although there's not that much light left in the day already, which is just boggling my mind. However, for a drive out here like this, the feeling of knowing you're not going to get stuck anywhere, all-wheel drive is going to save you pretty much whatever happens. You're going to be able to clear over the snow. And you can do that with a car stuffed full of everything that you could possibly imagine putting in, plus the kitchen sink, so no problems at all. And I think that works pretty appropriately in this environment. It's very good. If I was trying to fit a car to the content that I'm creating these videos, this is absolutely spot on, even more so with the history between Porsche and Mobil 1. They've been partnered for 20 years. Mobil 1 Oil's helping develop with Porsche a lot of their engines, so it fits quite nicely, I think, and I hope you're enjoying the locations we're visiting. I'm definitely enjoying the warmth in here. I've just pulled into a parking area off the side of the motorway, and yeah, you can see it's quite snowy, so I'm appreciating being inside in the warmth right now, although I'm going to use this opportunity to show you a little bit more about the interior of this car, because there is an awful lot to see and talk about and show you around with all of these digital displays and screens and the options and settings and different features and bits of functionality that you can have. And what I really like is that even in the Cayenne, in the SUV, you still get a hint of 911 traditional Porsche, you know, the 5 different dials in effect on the screen, although this is of course through the software rather than being physical dials. And then you can use these toggles on either side to scroll through different settings and modes, and that's your adaptive cruise control, distance, just a bit of trip information on the left. And then what I like on the right screen is that you can see the distribution of power between the front and rear wheels. So if you're driving along, literally as you accelerate, you can see more power going towards the front and variably being controlled between the two. So that all works pretty neatly. And then on that side, you can cycle through G-force sensor, sport chrono lap timer, the full navigation display if you want to see the map there, trip information, basically all the different bits of information. I like that bit that goes around the side that shows you which screen you currently have selected. That's nice as well. So you can get lots of information out of that naturally. It has the sport chrono clock in the center, again a bit like a Carrera or a sportier version of the car, and similarly with the mode selector with the center button. So if, let's say, you had it into Sport Plus mode, there, which you can see is indicated, and you press the button in the center, you will see you get sport response. So you get
an overboost style, slightly extra power for 20 seconds or so when you press that. Then in the center you have this huge display, which I really like when you put your hand towards it like that. It has a sensor somewhere clearly that knows you're doing it. It's very, very clear, very sharp. It is a brilliant system, and it has a lot of information and things that you can press through and do. It's really very next generation. This is way beyond, way beyond most other systems I've seen or played with or had any testing out on different cars before now. So in the car mode, for example, here you can change between the driving modes there. You can raise and lower the vehicle here, put it up for terrain mode so the suspension will raise itself up. Oh, I can feel the front going up. Don't know if you could quite see that, but if we put it back into terrain mode, the front of the car is lifting up. Yeah, strange, but anyway. Obviously that will be settings. Off-road mode, you can choose your settings there. Top-down view, the 360 parking camera system. Close that and go back. All sorts of different things. Ambient lighting color. You kind of get my point. There is a ton of stuff in here that you can configure to your liking. Controlled hotkeys underneath if you want to save, so you don't have to press these buttons up the left. Back to the home, obviously, where you have tiles that can do stuff. You can change what's there. You can have the hotkeys to go straight to certain bits of functionality, climate control, all these touch sensors, the controller for the gearbox, heated seats. Here's something I don't like. So this car isn't optioned with the ventilated seats, but you can see that the effectively button is still there, as are some other buttons here. So it's just that they take out the LED, and I feel like I would constantly be looking at this like, why didn't I get that option? You know, I want to have that button lit up. That would bug me anyway, little thing. I quite like that Cayenne nameplate right underneath there. Cup holders, great armrest storage. I've got my phone and cameras and stuff in there, but there's a really big storage box back there. So yes, everything in here really works very effectively up front. Let's shut the car off and pop out just to have a jump in the back quickly and show you a little bit more of the car back there. And just to grab the key out quickly as well, the newer style key here, slightly thinner and flatter than before, but still with the usual buttons and controls, so we can open up the boot. Power fold tailgate, always. I've got a bit of luggage in here, but 40-20-40 rear seats or through loading system, parcel shelf cover. Presumably if I lift this up under there, we've got a wheel well, spare tyre kits, but extra space beneath the flat floor. And of course we can shut that down. Let's have a quick look in the back as well for the rear seats. How much leg room do we have back here? And I mean, that seat was quite far backwards where I had it for my position. There's not a huge amount of room, it has to be said. There could be more, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's not uncomfortable, obviously. I'm not touching, and there's plenty of headroom. So the panoramic roof could be completely opened. That cover obviously coming towards the back, and it comes right back here. Well, I've got a lot of headroom above me. I'm about 1.80 meters just under, so there's a lot of space back there as well, and a 12-volt socket in the center. Not too much in the rear, not too much luxury or comfort for the back, more the practicality element and that side of things. Anyway, one other thing on the outside I want to just quickly mention. You probably noticed there is no number plate at the rear or at the front, and the reason for that is because it is a brand new car here. It doesn't yet get the number plates immediately. In the meantime, you use sticker plates in the windscreen. That's, I gather, normal here in Finland. Anyway, looking around the car, it is very much Cayenne. It's what you know and expect the Cayenne to look like. You could option it obviously with larger wheels. This is running very much a winter setup for the type of conditions we're driving in, but today has been good so far. I'm most of the way there, a little bit more to go, but I'm very well aware that the light is soon to drop down, and where I'm heading is nowhere near illumination. So I'm going to wrap up today's video for there. So far this journey has been an awful lot of fun, enjoying the car, the right car for the conditions. GT3 RS was never going to manage it. The Carrera 4S probably could have managed it, but I would have been being very, very careful. This kind of car you can just drive on a trip like this anyway. It's a big thanks from me to Mobil One for the opportunity to come along the
invitation to join them and see a little bit more about where the oil for cars like this is actually produced, how it's produced, and we'll be learning a lot more about that. So make sure to stay tuned and come back and check out that part of this adventure too. So thanks to them, thanks to Porsche for the opportunity to drive the new Cayenne, and thanks to you guys for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to be subscribed, click the bell notification button to get instant alerts about new videos. That's it for now though. I'll catch up with you guys again very soon. Cheers!